The reception hall drifted in layers of light and gravity, the ceiling bending slightly to accommodate three species that disagreed on what up meant. Leon stood very still, holding a crystal glass that adjusted its temperature to his pulse, wondering if anyone would notice if he quietly phased himself into a maintenance corridor and stayed there until the diplomatic incident inevitably blamed on him had already happened. His uniform itched in ways that violated several human rights treaties, and the music, produced by vibrating fields rather than instruments, felt less heard than gently argued with by his inner ear. He was rehearsing neutral greetings in 5 languages when a hand closed around his arm. It was firm, precise, and utterly unapologetic. Leon startled, sloshing a fraction of luminescent liquid onto his sleeve. He turned, already forming an apology meant for a security officer or an offended dignitary, and instead found himself facing Lady Kyreth. She stood half a head taller than him, posture flawless, expression composed in the way only someone entirely confident in their authority could manage. She looked human at first glance. Smooth skin, symmetrical features, but her long ears swept back elegantly, tapering to delicate points that marked her as distinctly not from Earth. "Come with me," she said, and began walking before he agreed. Leon was dragged past a delegation of amphibious economists, narrowly avoided eye contact with his own ambassador, and was pulled into a side alcove where the hum of the reception dimmed into a respectful background whisper. Kyreth released his arm and regarded him as if checking a list only she could see. "I have decided," she said, "that you will father my child." Leon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'm sorry," he said, because that was what humans said when their brains temporarily abandoned them. "I think my translator just attempted to assassinate me." Kyreth tilted her head slightly. "Your translator is functioning within acceptable deviation. I am referring to reproduction." The words hung between them, heavy and immaculately clear. Leon felt heat climb his neck, an impressive feat given the climate controls. He glanced around, half expecting hidden cameras or laughter. There was neither. "This is bold," he managed. "Is this a custom greeting where you're from?" "No," Kyreth said. "Custom greetings involve the exchange of lineage markers. This is a private matter. You were selected after extensive observation." "Selected?" Leon echoed faintly. "For that?" "Yes." She said it the way one might say weather forecast or supply inventory. Leon laughed, a short, brittle sound that surprised even him. "You're serious?" "Entirely." He rubbed his face. "Lady Kyreth, we've spoken exactly twice. Once about trade corridors, once about the alarming size of your ceremonial fish. The fish was genetically engineered for intimidation," she said. "It worked." "That wasn't the point." Kyreth stepped closer, lowering her voice. "My species experiences fertility cycles at intervals measured in decades. My position requires an heir. You meet the necessary criteria." Leon's brain latched desperately onto that word. "Criteria, right. There are criteria. Of course there are." He gestured vaguely at himself. "May I ask which box I checked? Was it my charming tendency to spill drinks or my obvious desire to flee this building?" "Your cognitive flexibility," she said. "Your ethical consistency. Your resilience under stress. Your genetic markers indicate strong disease resistance. Also, you are unlikely to attempt political leverage through offspring." Leon stared. "I'm flattered in a way that feels deeply unsafe." Kyreth frowned, a minute adjustment. "This is considered the highest compliment in my culture. Then your culture and mine need to sit down with a mediator and a very large pot of tea." She did not smile, but her ears shifted, which Leon would later learn was the closest equivalent. "You are uncomfortable." "I am experiencing a full-scale cultural meltdown," Leon said. "Usually humans at least get dinner first." "I am offering a contract," Kyreth continued calmly. "Medical procedures will be controlled. Legal frameworks established. No expectation of emotional attachment. Your role would be defined, respected, and concluded." He blinked. "Concluded?" "Yes." "So I'm not a partner," he said. "I'm a component." Kyreth considered him. "A vital one." Leon exhaled slowly, the absurdity finally tipping into humor. You know, back home, people usually worry about being valued only for their looks. This is new. I do not understand the joke, she said. That makes two of us. Silence stretched, filled by the distant resonance of alien music and the faint awareness that somewhere diplomats were still pretending nothing strange was happening. Leon looked at her again, really looked. For all her precision, there was something tight beneath it, a careful holding in that felt less like strength and more like containment. You grabbed my arm, he said gently. Did you know that would embarrass me? No, Kyreth replied, but I observed that it did. Spectacularly, she inclined her head. Then we will adjust future interactions. It was such a simple statement, offered without defensiveness, that Leon laughed again, this time softer. Against all logic, the tension eased a fraction. Lady Kyreth, he said, I think this conversation is going to take longer than a reception. That is acceptable, she said. I have waited many years already. And for the first time since she had spoken, something in her voice wavered just enough for Leon to notice. Leon spent the next 47 minutes trying not to imagine the phrase genetic contributor printed on a formal badge and pinned to his chest. Kyreth had insisted, politely, infuriatingly, that they relocate somewhere more appropriate for contractual discussion. This turned out to be a consultation chamber shaped like a softened hexagon, its walls shifting color in response to conversational tone. At the moment, they were a nervous beige, which Leon suspected was an insult. He sat. Kyreth remained standing, because apparently chairs were optional symbols of hierarchy in her culture. Leon briefly considered standing too, then remembered his legs were still processing the earlier shock and might unionize against him. I want to be very clear, Leon said, holding up one finger, then deciding one was insufficient and adding a second. I am not saying no. I am also not saying yes. I am saying I need several minutes, possibly hours, and ideally a handbook. Kyreth nodded. Processing time is expected. You may ask questions. Oh, good, Leon said. I have several hundred. She gestured to the air. A translucent interface bloomed between them, lines of data cascading like polite waterfalls. Leon leaned back instinctively. Is that about me? Yes. Is it supposed to be public? No. That's reassuring in a deeply theoretical way. Kyreth adjusted the display, slowing the flow. Leon caught glimpses of graphs, medical schematics, probability models. One heading flashed briefly. Compatibility projections. He squinted. Are those percentages? Yes. I don't want to know what they're for. Understood, she said, and the heading vanished. Your discomfort level has increased. Shocking. Kyreth clasped her hands behind her back. In my society, reproduction was separated from pair bonding centuries ago. Emotional attachment introduced instability. Strategic reproduction ensured continuity. Leon tilted his head. And happiness? That is not a metric we prioritize. Well, Leon said, humans are very fond of it. Possibly too fond. We make entire industries out of it. I have observed this, Kyreth replied. Your entertainment systems are largely devoted to simulated joy and controlled sorrow. That's uncomfortably accurate. She continued, you were observed for several cycles. Your behavior during negotiations demonstrated adaptability. You apologize even when not at fault. Leon winced. That's trauma, not virtue. Nevertheless, it indicates cooperative instinct. I can't believe I'm being complimented for my anxiety. In my culture, anxiety is considered an early warning system. Finally, Leon said, validation. Kyreth regarded him steadily. You are not being reduced to genetics. You are being selected with respect. Leon laughed quietly. You say that like it helps. It should. It doesn't, he admitted, then sighed. But I'm trying to meet you halfway. The wall shifted slightly toward a calmer tone. Kyreth seemed to notice. Explain, she said. Leon leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. For humans, reproduction isn't just biological. It's tangled up with meaning, identity, sometimes regret, sometimes really bad poetry. I am unfamiliar with this form of warfare. Poetry? Leon smiled despite himself. Trust me, it's devastating. Kyreth considered this. If meaning is required, it can be negotiated. That's not how meaning works. Then humans are inefficient. Leon laughed outright this time. We've been saying that for centuries. Silence followed, not awkward but thoughtful. Kyreth deactivated the display, and for the first time since they'd met, she sat across from him. The chair formed beneath her as if the room itself approved. You are not offended, she said slowly. You are unsettled. Yes, and embarrassed. Very. In my culture, she said, directness prevents confusion. In mine, directness causes people to faint. She inclined her head. A difference to be respected. Leon studied her face, the precise calm, the long ears held still like carefully balanced instruments. Can I ask you something not on your list? You may. Did you choose me because you wanted to, or because you had to? For the first time, Kyreth did not answer immediately. Her gaze shifted just slightly away from him. I chose you, she said at last, because you were optimal. That wasn't the question. She looked back at him. The pause stretched, filled with the faint hum of the station's power core, a reminder that entire civilizations rested on controlled energy and unspoken compromise. My position requires an heir, she said, but requirement does not negate preference. Leon nodded slowly. That's closer. Her ears twitched again, almost imperceptibly. You are difficult to categorize. I've been told. Another silence, softer now. The walls warmed a shade. We will proceed carefully, Kyreth said. No decision will be forced. Leon exhaled, tension easing just enough for humor to sneak back in. Good, because I don't think my species has a protocol for being politely recruited into alien dynastic succession. We can draft one, she said. He smiled. Of course you can. And despite himself, Leon realized he was still sitting there. Not fleeing, not panicking, just talking, which, given how the evening had started, felt like progress. Leon learned very quickly that agreeing to further discussion was the most dangerous diplomatic phrase in the galaxy. By the time he arrived at the medical wing, escorted by two floating guidance drones that hummed encouragement in a tone he found deeply sarcastic, he had already signed 3 provisional access waivers, 1 cultural sensitivity acknowledgement, and something that might have been permission for his organs to be politely scanned. This is not binding, Leon said for the 5th time as the door slid open. Correct, Kyreth replied. It is preparatory. That word is doing a lot of work. The chamber beyond was immaculate in the way only advanced civilizations manage. No visible tools, no clutter, just curved surfaces and softly pulsing light. A diagnostic platform rose from the floor like a restrained thought. Leon stopped just short of stepping onto it. I want to clarify something, he said. When humans say medical, we usually mean needles. There will be none, Kyreth said. Leon relaxed. Good. Nanoscopic intervention will suffice. He froze again. I would like to revise my emotional response. Kyreth's ears shifted. Fear? Healthy caution. She gestured and the platform projected a lattice of light, mapping a human silhouette in elegant precision. Leon recognized his own posture, slightly slouched. It captured that accurately, he muttered. Postural self-consciousness is noted, Kyreth said. Please stop noting things. She did not. As the scan progressed, Leon felt only a mild warmth and the unsettling sensation of being politely understood at a cellular level. Data streamed upward, forming rotating models of chromosomes, probability arcs, and projected outcomes. This feels intimate, Leon said. It is clinical. That doesn't help. Kyreth studied the projections with professional focus. Your genetic structure displays uncommon stability. Cross-species adaptation potential is within acceptable variance. Ah, Leon said. I always suspected I was adaptable. Yes, you survived the food symposium. I nearly died. You recovered without complaint. I complained for weeks. Internally, she clarified. Leon sighed. I'm being evaluated like a particularly cooperative appliance. Kyreth glanced at him. Appliances are not entrusted with dynastic continuity. Comforting. The scan concluded with a soft chime, and the platform receded. Leon stepped off, rubbing his arms as if that would somehow reclaim privacy already lost. Next, Kyreth said, we discuss legal structure. Of course we do. They moved to a side chamber where the air itself rearranged into floating panels of text and symbols. Leon recognized none of the languages, but sensed authority in the way they hovered. You will retain full autonomy, Kyreth said. No claim will be made on your future relationships. Your involvement will be acknowledged discreetly. Discreetly, Leon repeated, meaning my mother won't find out from an interstellar bulletin? She will not. Excellent. She would have opinions. Kyreth tilted her head. Are maternal opinions considered dangerous? In concentrated doses, yes. Leon scrolled through one panel experimentally. It responded by displaying a clause with an alarming number of subclauses. He squinted. This one seems to imply I'm allowed visitation rights contingent on atmospheric compatibility. Yes, that's fair. Another panel expanded. And this one, that governs emotional boundaries. Leon blinked. You have those in writing? Ambiguity creates conflict. That's the most alien thing you've said yet. Kyreth's gaze softened slightly, though she maintained her composure. You find this overwhelming? Yes, Leon said frankly, but not because of the science or the politics. It's because you're talking about creating a life like it's a logistics problem. She paused. It is. And that, he said gently, is where we don't align. The silence that followed was different from the earlier ones. It carried weight. Kyreth folded her hands, considering. In my society, she said, emotional involvement complicates succession. It creates vulnerability. And yet, Leon said, here you are, vulnerable. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in concentration. Explain. You didn't send an aide, he said. You didn't make this a formal decree. You grabbed my arm at a party and asked me yourself. That doesn't sound like someone avoiding complexity. For a moment, Leon thought he'd gone too far. Then Kyreth exhaled, a controlled release that suggested effort. You are observant, she said. I was evaluated, he reminded her. I'd hate to underperform. A faint, unexpected sound escaped her. It took Leon a second to realize it was a laugh. Brief, surprised, almost reluctant. Your humor is inefficient, she said. I'll put that on my resume. They stood there surrounded by contracts and stars, two beings negotiating not just terms but translation. We will proceed slowly, Kyreth said at last. Adjustments will be made. Leon nodded. Good, because if I'm going to be part of something this strange, I'd like it to at least be human, or alien, or whatever we end up calling it. Kyreth met his gaze. We will define it together. And somehow, amid the legal light and humming machines, that felt like the most radical proposal of all. The observation deck was quiet in the way only space could manage. A vast silence held together by reinforced transparent steel and the distant thrum of the station's rotation. Beyond the curved window, a blue-white star burned with patient indifference, its light filtered to a comfortable level by layers of adaptive shielding. Leon stood with his hands clasped behind his back, pretending he was the sort of person who often contemplated stellar phenomena instead of someone who had recently been medically scanned like a premium agricultural sample. Kyreth stood beside him, close enough that Leon was acutely aware of her presence without knowing quite what to do about it. Her long ears angled slightly backward, relaxed but attentive, like antennae tuned to a frequency he didn't yet understand. This star, she said, will collapse in approximately 47 million of your years. Leon nodded. That's, comforting. It will form a dense remnant capable of sustaining orbital habitats. Still comforting, just in a more existentially alarming way. She glanced at him. Humans prefer shorter timelines. We like our disasters scheduled within a generation, Leon said. It makes them feel more personal. They stood in silence for a moment, watching plasma arcs ripple across the stellar surface. Leon cleared his throat. So, he said, is this the part where you tell me something life-altering while pointing at space? Kyreth considered. That is not a recognized conversational pattern. It is for us. She shifted her weight, hands folding together in front of her. I brought you here because this location discourages interruption. Ah, Leon said. Nothing like the void to keep things private. Her gaze remained fixed on the star. You asked me earlier whether I chose you because I wanted to or because I had to. Leon felt the tension return, gentle but insistent. I did. In my society, Kyreth said slowly, leaders are not permitted to express uncertainty. Doubt undermines stability. Leon smiled faintly. You'd hate human politics. I am already deeply confused by it. She turned to face him fully now, the light catching the subtle differences in her features, the elegant length of her ears casting soft shadows along her jaw. I have fulfilled every requirement expected of my position, strategically, efficiently, without deviation. And, Leon prompted. And, she said, this requirement is different. He waited. My species no longer forms pair bonds as you understand them, Kyreth continued. Reproduction is scheduled, managed, isolated from attachment. It ensures continuity, but it also ensures solitude. Leon exhaled slowly. That sounds, lonely. Yes, she said simply. The word hung there, unadorned. Leon felt an unexpected tightness in his chest, quickly masked by humor. You know, back home, we have entire genres of entertainment dedicated to people being lonely together. We call them romantic comedies. They're terrible. Why do you continue to produce them? Hope, he said, and stubbornness. Kyreth absorbed this. You introduce inefficiency deliberately. We call it character. She studied him, eyes searching not for data this time, but something less precise. When I selected you, she said, I believed myself detached, objective. You find this overwhelming. Yes, Leon said frankly, but not because of the science or the politics. It's because you're talking about creating a life like it's a logistics problem. She paused. It is. And that, he said gently, is where we don't align. The silence that followed was different from the earlier ones. It carried weight. Kyreth folded her hands, considering. In my society, she said, emotional involvement complicates succession. It creates vulnerability. And yet, Leon said, here you are. Vulnerable. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in concentration. Explain. You didn't send an aide, he said. You didn't make this a formal decree. You grabbed my arm at a party and asked me yourself. That doesn't sound like someone avoiding complexity. For a moment, Leon thought he'd gone too far. Then Kyreth exhaled, a controlled release that suggested effort. You are observant, she said. I was evaluated, he reminded her. I'd hate to underperform. A faint, unexpected sound escaped her. It took Leon a second to realize it was a laugh. Brief, surprised, almost reluctant. Your humor is inefficient, she said. I'll put that on my resume. They stood there surrounded by contracts and stars, two beings negotiating not just terms but translation. We will proceed slowly, Kyreth said at last. Adjustments will be made. Leon nodded. Good, because if I'm going to be part of something this strange, I'd like it to at least be human, or alien, or whatever we end up calling it. Kyreth met his gaze. We will define it together. And somehow, amid the legal light and humming machines, that felt like the most radical proposal of all. The observation deck was quiet in the way only space could manage, a vast silence held together by reinforced transparasteel and the distant thrum of the station's rotation. Beyond the curved window, a blue-white star burned with patient indifference, its light filtered to a comfortable level by layers of adaptive shielding. Leon stood with his hands clasped behind his back, pretending he was the sort of person who often contemplated stellar phenomena instead of someone who had recently been medically scanned like a premium agricultural sample. Kyreth stood beside him, close enough that Leon was acutely aware of her presence without knowing quite what to do about it. Her long ears angled slightly backward, relaxed but attentive, like antennae tuned to a frequency he didn't yet understand. This star, she said, will collapse in approximately 47 million of your years. Leon nodded. That's comforting. It will form a dense remnant capable of sustaining orbital habitats. Still comforting, just in a more existentially alarming way. She glanced at him. Humans prefer shorter timelines. We like our disasters scheduled within a generation, Leon said. It makes them feel more personal. They stood in silence for a moment, watching plasma arcs ripple across the stellar surface. Leon cleared his throat. So, he said, is this the part where you tell me something life-altering while pointing at space? Kyreth considered. That is not a recognized conversational pattern. It is for us. She shifted her weight, hands folding together in front of her. I brought you here because this location discourages interruption. Ah, Leon said. Nothing like the void to keep things private. Her gaze remained fixed on the star. You asked me earlier whether I chose you because I wanted to or because I had to. Leon felt the tension return, gentle but insistent. I did. In my society, Kyreth said slowly, leaders are not permitted to express uncertainty. Doubt undermines stability. Leon smiled faintly. You'd hate human politics. I am already deeply confused by it. She turned to face him fully now, the light catching the subtle differences in her features, the elegant length of her ears casting soft shadows along her jaw. I have fulfilled every requirement expected of my position, strategically, efficiently, without deviation. And, Leon prompted, and, she said, this requirement is different. He waited. My species no longer forms pair bonds as you understand them, Kyreth continued. Reproduction is scheduled, managed, isolated from attachment. It ensures continuity, but it also ensures solitude. Leon exhaled slowly. That sounds lonely. Yes, she said simply. The word hung there, unadorned. Leon felt an unexpected tightness in his chest, quickly masked by humor. You know, back home, we have entire genres of entertainment dedicated to people being lonely together. We call them romantic comedies. They're terrible. Why do you continue to produce them? Hope, he said, and stubbornness. Kyreth absorbed this. You introduce inefficiency deliberately. We call it character. She studied him, eyes searching not for data this time, but something less precise. When I selected you, she said, I believed myself detached, objective. There's a difference. The council deliberated in silence, a private exchange of data Leon could not access. He rocked slightly on his heels, then stopped when his halo of light pulsed disapprovingly. After what felt like hours but was likely seconds, the voice spoke again. The amendments are provisionally accepted. Leon exhaled. Provisionally is my favorite word today. Kyreth inclined her head. Thank you. As the chamber dissolved back into neutral lighting, Leon realized something unsettling. He hadn't felt like an object in that room. He'd felt present. Later, walking the corridor toward the residential wing, Leon broke the silence. You didn't have to do that. Yes, Kyreth said. I did. He smiled at the certainty in her tone. You're getting good at this. At what? Wanting, he said. She considered. It is inefficient. Everything worthwhile is. They stopped outside his quarters. The door remained politely closed, sensing unresolved conversation. Kyreth hesitated, then said, I am uncertain. Leon laughed softly. Congratulations. You're officially relatable. She met his gaze. You make this easier. Careful, he said. That's how it starts. Her lips curved just slightly. Noted. The door finally slid open. Leon stepped inside, then paused. For what it's worth, he said, I'm glad you grabbed my arm. Kyreth's ears shifted, warm light catching their edges. So am I. And as the door closed, Leon realized that somewhere between contracts and councils, something had changed. Not written, not projected, but quietly agreed upon. Leon woke to the gentle sound of his quarters recalibrating gravity. It was a subtle thing, like the station clearing its throat, but it was enough to pull him from sleep with the distinct sense that something had gone slightly wrong. He lay still, staring at the ceiling as it shifted from night mode darkness to a polite dawn blue, and tried to remember whether he had agreed to any new protocols before going to bed. Then the wall chimed. Leon, Kyreth's voice said, filtered through the room's comm system, precise as ever. Are you conscious? He groaned. Define conscious. There was a pause. Your vital signs indicate wakefulness. Your tone suggests resistance. That's just my personality. I require your presence, she said. There has been a complication. Leon sat up immediately. What kind of complication? Medical? Political? The kind where someone suddenly wants to duel me? None of those, Kyreth replied. It is procedural. Leon swung his legs over the side of the bed. Those are the worst kind. He dressed quickly and stepped into the corridor, which guided him not toward a council chamber or medical wing, but toward a section of the station he hadn't visited before. The walls here were warmer in color, the lighting softer, less institutional. It felt lived in. Kyreth waited outside a door marked with her sigil. She stood perfectly straight, hands clasped, ears angled in what Leon had learned was a sign of internal calculation. You look like someone about to apologize for something you didn't do, Leon said. In my experience, she replied, that expression precedes adaptability. Great, what happened? She hesitated just long enough to be noticeable. The council has advanced the reproductive timeline. Leon stopped walking. Advanced as in sooner? Yes. How much sooner? Soon enough that further delay would be interpreted as non-compliance. Leon rubbed his face. Of course it would. They believe the revised agreement indicates emotional commitment, Kyreth added. This has unsettled them. Leon blinked. We were polite in public. That's emotional commitment now? In my culture, she said, advocating for change is an intimate act. Leon let out a short laugh. Wow. Humans have been accidentally intimate for centuries. They entered the room. It was not a lab. That was the first thing Leon noticed. No platforms, no diagnostic lights. Instead, there were low couches arranged around a softly glowing central structure that pulsed with contained energy. What is this? He asked. This is a bonding chamber, Kyreth said. Leon's eyebrows shot up. You absolutely could have led with that. It is not romantic, she said quickly. It facilitates neurological synchronization during cooperative decision-making. He stared at her. That sentence did nothing to calm me. Kyreth's ears twitched. The procedure is optional. And yet the timeline is not. Yes. Leon exhaled slowly, then looked around again. The room felt safe, almost comforting, despite the implications. So what happens in here? We sit, she said. We speak. The system observes patterns of trust. He glanced at the couch, then back at her. You realize how that sounds. I am beginning to, she admitted. They sat opposite each other. The central structure brightened slightly, responding to their presence. Leon felt a faint warmth spread through his chest. Not intrusive, just attentive. This thing is reading us, isn't it? He asked. Yes, it measures coherence. Emotionally and cognitively, Leon chuckled. I hope it enjoys chaos. Kyreth studied him. You are nervous. Absolutely. Yet you are here. Apparently I make terrible escape decisions. The light pulsed, steady and slow. Images flickered faintly in the air. Not memories exactly, but impressions. Leon felt a strange clarity, as if the constant background noise in his mind had been turned down. This is peaceful, he said quietly. Kyreth nodded. It encourages openness. He glanced at her. How often do you use this? Rarely, she said. Leaders are discouraged from synchronization. That tracks. Silence settled, not heavy, but thoughtful. Leon became aware of Kyreth's presence in a new way, not physically closer, but somehow clearer. He sensed her focus, her restraint, the careful way she held herself together. This isn't just about an air, is it? He asked softly. Kyreth did not deflect this time. No. The word felt significant. I have fulfilled every expectation placed upon me, she continued. But fulfillment is not connection. The council believes continuity is enough. I am no longer certain. Leon smiled faintly. You're questioning doctrine. Yes. Welcome to humanity, he said. We question everything, sometimes loudly. The system's light shifted, warmer now. Kyreth's posture eased just slightly. You do not see me as weak, she said. No, Leon replied. I see you as brave and a little overwhelmed. Her lips curved, almost smiling. That is an unfamiliar assessment. I'm full of those. They sat there longer than either had planned, talking. Not negotiating, not defining terms, just talking. About their worlds, about mistakes, about how strange it was to feel understood by someone who had started out viewing him as a data point. When the system finally dimmed, Kyreth looked at him with something unguarded in her eyes. The council will interpret this session as confirmation, she said. Leon nodded. And how do you interpret it? She considered. As partnership. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I can work with that. For the first time since this strange journey had begun, Leon didn't feel like he was being carried forward by momentum alone. He felt chosen, not for his genetics, not for his compliance, but for his presence. And that somehow made all the difference. The chamber chosen for the final confirmation was older than the station itself, its architecture predating modular politics and adaptive diplomacy. The walls were etched with symbols that shifted meaning depending on who observed them, a quiet reminder that history was never singular. Leon stood at the center marker, hands relaxed at his sides, and realized with mild surprise that his pulse was steady. That, more than anything else, told him how much he had changed. Kyreth stood across from him, no longer positioned as an official opposite, but aligned beside him, their markers subtly overlapping. Her long ears were held neutral, neither tense nor withdrawn, and her expression carried something Leon had not seen during their first encounter. Ease. The council assembled in silence. Their presence felt as a layered pressure rather than sound. Data fields hovered, dormant for now, waiting. Leon leaned slightly toward Kyreth. If anyone asks, I want it officially recorded that I survived this process without fainting. That will be noted, she said. It is statistically impressive. High praise. The central field activated, projecting a living model of the agreement, not a contract this time, but a convergence map. It displayed timelines, shared responsibilities, and future contingencies branching outward like a carefully tended tree. The succession parameters are confirmed, the council's voice announced. The heir will be recognized as sovereign compatible. Leon nodded, absorbing the words without flinching. Weeks ago, that sentence would have sent him spiraling. Now it felt grounded. Leon of Earth, the voice continued, your role has evolved beyond initial designation. Leon cleared his throat. That keeps happening. Kyreth's ear twitched, amusement flickering. You are recognized as partner by choice, the council said. Not asset, not instrument. Leon smiled despite himself. My therapist is going to love that. A pause followed, then something unexpected. Lady Kyreth, the council said, your deviation from protocol has been evaluated. Leon tensed instinctively, but Kyreth did not. She stood tall, gaze steady. The outcome, the voice continued, demonstrates increased stability, not diminished. The precedent will stand. For the first time since Leon had known her, Kyreth exhaled fully, the release subtle but unmistakable. It appears, Leon murmured, you've accidentally reformed part of your civilization. Yes, she said quietly. Inconvenient. I'm proud of you. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and did not attempt to hide the warmth there. Your influence is disruptive. Human specialty. The field dimmed, signaling completion. The council withdrew, their attention already shifting to the consequences that would ripple outward. The chamber felt suddenly larger, emptier. Leon turned to Kyreth. So, what happens now? She considered. Now we proceed. That's refreshingly vague. She gestured toward the chamber exit. There is a private observatory. I thought we might stand somewhere without witnesses. Leon followed her through quiet corridors until the stars opened up again, a familiar comfort now. The observatory was smaller than the first, more intimate, its glass curved to give the illusion of floating in space. They stood side by side, shoulders nearly touching. You were uncomfortable when we first met, Kyreth said. Leon laughed softly. I was seconds away from pretending I didn't speak your language. And now? He thought about how he had arrived as a diplomat trained to remain untouched, how he had been selected, evaluated, quantified, and how somewhere along the way he had learned to assert his own worth without rejecting hers. Now, he said, I'm still uncomfortable, but I'm not embarrassed, and I'm not afraid of being seen. Kyreth nodded. You taught me that connection does not weaken authority. You taught me that being chosen doesn't have to mean being reduced. They stood in silence, watching a distant nebula twist slowly, colors bleeding into one another in impossible gradients. Leon chuckled. You know, if you'd led with, I'm lonely and bad at feelings, this would have been a much shorter story. Kyreth raised an eyebrow, and far less educational. He smiled, feeling the truth of it settle comfortably. He was no longer the man who had wanted to flee a reception hall. He had learned to stay, to negotiate not just treaties, but meaning. Kyreth turned to him. Our arrangement began as necessity, and ended as choice, Leon said. Yes. The station's lights shifted subtly, aligning to a new cycle. Somewhere beyond them, systems adjusted, plans recalculated, futures rearranged. Leon glanced at her. For what it's worth, I don't regret being grabbed. Kyreth's lips curved into a real smile this time, unguarded and unmistakable. Nor do I. They stood there, not defined by contract or culture anymore, but by the quiet understanding they had built, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. And in the vast, indifferent universe outside, that small, deliberate connection felt like something remarkably rare, something worth protecting.